As you can see, instead of the Scottish flag, which I usually have hanging behind me, today I have the Venezuelan flag. And it is not just for show, nor did I go out and buy a Venezuelan flag. I had it stored away among my most cherished belongings because I was born in Caracas, being a son of Spanish immigrants. I spent my childhood until the age of 7 in Venezuela. From there, I was left with memories of paradise and memories of, I was left with the desire to return to Venezuela someday. I returned a couple of times when my book, The Gardener, was published, because The Gardener was an international bestseller and I was asked to go there for promotion. But I longed to live there again at some point in my life. Hanging the Venezuelan flag there is, for me, a way of saying that I disagree with what is happening there right now. I also disagreed with what was happening in Venezuela until now. At no point have I defended Maduro or his regime, as I try not to fall into double standards, as is often the case with many people in rich countries, even progressive people who claim to defend human rights and then fall into double standards. The same is true for conservatives or people with more right-wing tendencies, who are also falling into double standards. I try to have a single moral code. My moral code is to adhere to the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Earth Charter. I try to adhere to this and make it my only moral code. In addition, my approach to life, society and politics is based on more than 45 years of spiritual work, on self-knowledge as a psychologist and also from a mystical point of view. Of searching, of expanding consciousness, of what in psychology has come to be called transpersonal psychology, of what is the search for transpersonal states of consciousness. I have been doing this for 40 years and have had significant experiences. From there, I try to approach what is happening in the world around me at this moment. Therefore, I am not trying to defend Maduro's regime at all. I disagree with what Maduro has been doing. Human rights have been violated in Venezuela for many years, but I disagree even more with what Trump has just done, with what Trump is doing in Venezuela. And displaying the flag there is mainly because of the current situation in Venezuela, because of this Roman neo-imperialism that we are experiencing. I say Roman, among other things, because we are reliving the era of mad emperors, as happened in ancient Rome with Nero, Caligula or Heliogabalus. They were completely mad emperors who led Rome to disaster. And that is more or less what is happening now in the United States. The United States is heading for disaster under Trump with his "Make America Great Again" slogan. It is a paradox because he is destroying the United States unless he is stopped from within the country. I wanted to talk about the current global situation because I think we all agree that the situation right now is truly worrying. And it is worrying, above all, because we are dealing with a series of psychopathic leaders who have taken control of the major powers. Psychopathic leaders. I will discuss this in another video shortly. But we find ourselves in a situation where the world is being ruled. Two of the great military powers are being ruled by true psychopaths. We will explain this in more detail in future videos. But there are people who may be wondering if we are heading towards a world war. There are people who are saying that a situation like this has not occurred since the missile crisis, when Kennedy and Khrushchev were on the verge of launching nuclear missiles at each other. It is being said, well, you know, that in recent days the United States has intercepted 2 Russian oil tankers, which apparently were not really oil tankers, because Russia sent an atomic submarine to defend one of these tankers, but it arrived too late. It is said that it is very possible that they were ships that looked like oil tankers, but were carrying espionage equipment. In short, they are talking about the possibility of a war between the United States and Russia. Personally, I doubt it. I doubt there will be a war between the United States and Russia, because the great rapport between Trump and Putin is apparent. And I don't think that the rapport will be broken now by a war. What is more, I would say that there may be some agreement, if not tacit, then a covert agreement to divide the world between them. It is curious that both Trump and Putin agree in their hatred of the European Union. It is clear that the European Union has many flaws, as it remains a collection of imperialist powers. It has many flaws, but it also has one virtue. It is the first experiment on our planet to unite countries that once killed each other. I believe that this is progress, and I believe that in some way it is a positive step in human consciousness, that countries that previously massacred each other have suddenly decided to unite, join forces, agree, and engage in dialogue. And it is remarkable that Russia and the United States, Putin and Trump, well, I would not say so much Russia and the United States. I would rather say that Putin and Trump are hating the European Union with all their hearts and seeking its destruction, ultimately. Russia has been financing far-right fascist parties in Europe in order to break up the European Union, while the States has now joined it as well. Not only the United States, but even Elon Musk, who, as you know, controls X. The algorithms on X are promoting fascism in Europe. They are promoting the destruction of Europe as well. And this is what Trump is seeking to achieve from the United States. Rather, it seems that the planet is being divided up, the world is being divided up among a few. Why? Because even though they deny climate change, they say it does not exist. They know that climate change is real, and in fact, they know it so well that they are taking strategic positions in the Arctic, because they know that the Arctic is going to thaw permanently soon. That is why the United States wants Greenland, not only for the rare earth elements and resources found in Greenland. The States wants to control the Arctic. Let us not lose sight of this. So, well, they are taking positions. They are dividing up the planet, especially knowing that we are heading towards climate change where water will be a scarce resource. And they are trying to control basic resources. But not for their people. Wake up. They are not trying to do this for their people. They are doing it for themselves and their ultra-rich friends, the Russian oligarchy, the US oligarchy. They are trying to control the basic resources needed for survival in the face of climate change. They are trying to preserve water, oil, iron. In Venezuela there is a lot of iron, rare earths, which allow them to design and develop the technology we are currently using. In short, we are witnessing a distribution of land and resources which is very reminiscent of the super states in George Orwell's novel 1984. It reminds us of it because it talked about Eurasia, and that is one of the super states that they want to build. Specifically, Putin wants to build it, following the instructions of his ideologue Alexander Dugin, who was already talking about it decades ago. Dugin said that a Russian empire had to be built that would stretch from Ireland to the Bering Strait. In other words, a Eurasian empire controlled by Russia. And on the other hand, another superstate, as Donald Trump is saying quite clearly, another superstate would be one that would control the United States and would comprise all the Americas, from Greenland and Alaska to Tierra del Fuego. Of course, if we take note of what they are trying to control, we will realize why Trump is now saying that the Western Hemisphere is his. He is saying it. Why? Because there is an aquifer between Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay and Paraguay, which is the second largest aquifer in the world. It is the Guarani aquifer, and Trump is going to try to keep it for himself at all costs. In other words, Venezuela is not the end, Venezuela is the beginning. Keep this in mind. This is just the beginning, as it will continue. Trump will attempt to gain control over all Latin America countries, either through direct military control or through puppets, just as Putin has been doing with Belarus and other neighboring countries. This is also what Putin wanted to do with Ukraine. In other words, these psychopaths who are ruling Russia and the United States, or psychopaths like they were ruling Israel, who is trying to do the same thing but on a smaller scale. He is trying to gain control of all the resources in the area. When he is done with Gaza, don't be surprised if he starts with Syria. Do not be surprised if he continues with Lebanon. Israel is not going to stop in Gaza. Why? For the same reason as Trump and Putin. They are seeking to control territory in order to control resources before climate change worsens. So we are finding ourselves in a rather complex situation. But then, on the other hand, there is China, and China has scores to settle with Russia. They may appear to be allies now, but they are not so much. China is giving Russia the rope to hang itself, because Russia is in a brutal economic crisis. It is losing the war in Ukraine, despite advances on the ground. It is making tactical advances, but strategically, it has already lost the war. And China is going to try to take over the area that Russia seized from it almost 2 centuries ago, an area where Lake Baikal, the world's second largest aquifer, is located. Earlier I mentioned the Guarani aquifer as the world's second largest underground aquifer, and here we are talking about the world's second largest surface aquifer. As soon as Russia begins to falter, China will enter Manchuria and go for Lake Baikal.
En toda la zona de la Manchuria y China irá a por el lago Baikal. No lo dudéis.
Do not doubt it. And then there is India. But that would be too many topics to cover here. We'll talk about that in future videos. India, which will soon have a larger population than China. And the problem is that India's current leader is also far-right. Possibly, I don't know, I haven't studied it in depth, but we may have another psychopath in the making in India. What can ordinary citizens do in the face of all this? Because you might say, we are entering a world of madness, a world that seems to have gone mad. What are we, ordinary people, going to do? What can we do? The first thing I would say to you is not to give up hope. In the network of small activist groups that I founded a couple of years ago, Rainbow Warriors 3.5, we have a motto that is radical hope, however unrealistic it may seem.
Esperanza radical, por irreal que pueda parecer. Y yo os animo a eso. Esperanza radical por irreal que pueda parecer.
There is a German-Korean philosopher, Byung-Chul Han, who has become very well known recently. In a book that I recommend, entitled The Spirit of Hope, he says,
Byung-Chul Han dice,
hope is the gist of revolution, the catalyst for the new. On the other hand, there is no such thing as a revolution of fear, though not led by fear. Those who are afraid submit to power. That is what is happening in countries where people are voting for the far right. They instill fear in them, and because of that fear, they end up voting for the far right. Those who are afraid submit to power only in the hope of a different and better world. Those revolutionary potential awaken. The fact that revolution is not possible today is because we cannot harbor hope when we have nothing else to cling to but fear. Life is reduced to survival. Refuse to survive. Refuse to fear. Life from hope. Hope drives action. Hope is revolutionary. Life from hope. We can make a better world, and we will make a better world. Above all, these psychopaths. Secondly, what can ordinary citizens do? We need to bring about an ethical revolution, because recent decades have shown us that corruption at political and corporate levels is the norm. Well, we have to change this once and for all. There are not enough laws to control so much abuse, so much corruption, so much double standards. Therefore, we need an ethical revolution in humanity. People should no longer be controlled by laws, but by their own inner law, by their own ethics. They should say to themselves, I cannot do this because it is unethical, because it is not fair, I will not do it. We need an ethical revolution. In this regard, I encourage you to discover the Earth Charter. It is an international document created by civil society, not by governments, but by civil society. An international document which establishes common ethical principles for all humanity, as it was created with people from all cultures. Furthermore, I would also suggest that action must be taken. Do not stay at home. You can express your opinion from home, but expressing your opinion is not enough. You have to take to the streets. You have to put your body on the line. You have to take a risk sometimes. Sometimes you even have to risk your life, as people in Iran are doing right now. The Iranian people are going to overthrow the Ayatollah's government. They are going to overthrow it, because people have already said, we will not let fear get the better of us. We will take to the streets. We will go all out. We must take action, and in some serious cases, such as Iran, we must risk our lives. In the meantime, as long as you don't have to risk your life, start moving now, start taking to the streets now, protesting, rebelling. We need a global civil society rebellion. And finally, I would suggest a change in worldview. I will talk about this in future videos. A change in worldview that takes us from the modern, materialistic, positivist, mechanistic, anthropocentric worldview, where human beings are seen as the center of everything, a worldview centered on money. We have to move towards a systemic, ecocentric worldview. The center is the entire planet, with all her species. A worldview which is not mechanistic, but organicist. We will explain this in detail in later videos. And a worldview which is not materialistic, but based on consciousness. In this regard, I encourage you to approach this crisis we are facing. We have been entering this crisis for a year now. I encourage you to approach this crisis from a spiritual perspective. Because from an exclusively materialistic worldview, you will not be able to find much hope. However, from a worldview that contemplates other realities, you will find much support and encouragement. And apart from that, they do not need to be religious realities, so to speak. You can work from Carl Gustav Jung's depth psychology.
Pero Jung hablaba de
Jung spoke of
del inconsciente
archetypes of the
colectivo.
collective
Desde ahí
unconscious.
también podemos
We can
trabajar.
also
No hace
work
falta
from there.
meterse en ningún
There is no
lado.
need to get
Podemos
involved
trabajar desde
in
ahí.
any
Y podemos
religion.
trabajar con
We can work
metodologías
from
de
there,
carácter
and we
espiritual,
can work
como
with
es la
spiritual
meditación Zen,
methodologies,
por ejemplo,
such
que
as
ahora la han
Zen
querido
meditation,
vender como
for
un
example,
producto de mercado
which
llamándola
they now want to
mindfulness.
sell us a
Bueno, pues
market
es
product
meditación Zen.
called
Y bueno, dos
mindfulness.
tipos de
But
meditación
it
que
is
son
Zen
todas
meditation.
basadas en el centramiento de la mente. Y
And
nada más,
that's it.
simplemente
I'll
de
simply
todo esto,
talk
de cómo
about all
abordar
this,
desde el
about
espíritu,
how to approach
desde la
the
conciencia,
crisis we
la
are
crisis en
entering
la que
from
estamos
a
entrando,
spiritual
iré
or
hablando en
conscious
próximos,
perspective in future
en próximos
videos.
vídeos.
Meanwhile, thank you very
Mientras
much,
tanto,
and
muchas
I look
gracias
forward
y
to you joining
os
me
espero
for the
en el
next
próximo
video.
vídeo.
Midnight Sun, el sol de medianoche.